It's a working informational video on how I convert cooktops from propane to gas, okay, or gas to propane, whichever. It involves changing out 4 different items. So first of all, this is a sealed burner unit, so these Viking VGSU models and the KitchenAid models that also are cooktops like this, they're sealed. You can't get to the underneath workings of these, so you have to get to those somehow, okay? I'm not sure how the KitchenAids are set up, but I know the Vikings are set up this way. I've done a few of these now, okay? There's 4 things involved in doing this conversion. Number 1, the regulator has to be switched from gas to propane. This one has 2 ratings on it, so basically you can get in there and you can switch these. They have instructions available on that, so I'm not going to get into that today, but this is one of the things that does have to be changed to change the pressure, the incoming pressure of whatever gas you're using, gas or propane. Okay. The second thing is deep inside of these holes here on these units only. Usually the orifice is at the bottom of these units on these types of things, but for some reason Viking and KitchenAid elected to put them further upstream, so that means that you have to get to the underside of the unit to do the swap over, okay? Anyhow, these have rings on them, okay? These units here have rings on them that have slots in them, and you have to take these rings off in order to be able to get these guys off, okay? And I'm going to demonstrate that here in a second, okay? Now, the challenge is that it's a brass ring with slots, and it has to be twisted out. So basically what I use is, I go down to Home Depot, I get one of these little pieces of punched bar zinc. It's thin enough to where it'll actually fit into the slots of these guys, okay? Now this one here is a bigger one, so I end up having to do that one sideways, okay? And this is the biggest burner here. I think that's a 12,000 BTU burner, okay? Anyhow, and then, these have different sizes on here, okay? I put it on the inside, okay, and then I just turn it. Now, before you actually get into doing that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to soak these with some type of penetrating oil, WD-40, whatever it is, and let it sit overnight, because it's going to loosen this bond here. Because if these things have been used for a number of years, this brass ring shrinks at a different rate than the aluminum does, plus you get the gunk in there, and it acts like a glue, so it's really hard to get to, okay? So basically that's going to go in a slot, and it's going to turn, okay? Now on these ones here, what happened was these things glued so tightly to that, it actually formed a really serious bond, so the part that's being unscrewed is further down into the pipe here, okay? So I won't actually be able to get these off of here. I'm going to have to get this whole thing off of here and then work, grab that piece and separate it from the brass tube. This one here actually turned out okay. Now if you notice, this piece is a little bit wider than that ring, so it's going to tend to want to scratch the surface, the edge of this thing a little bit. You will be able to get it out. You might grind it a little bit, maybe on the end, so it doesn't scratch. But I'm going to do a complete cosmetic restoration on this thing anyway, so all of these here, they're all going to be cleaned up. Okay, so basically, goes in there, okay, and then I just grab myself a little crescent wrench and then just turn it, and you're able to get enough force on it. Once it's been sitting overnight, it comes looser. It gets looser easier, okay? And I just give it a turn, and it'll take a couple of turns. I've already loosened this enough because I'm just demonstrating here, but anyway, so it gets to the point to where it's loosened, and then you can get to the point to where you can do it with your fingers, okay? So these guys come out. The other thing about these, okay, you got to take this off, you got to take the burner head off, okay? The other thing is that the spark igniters are on the burner heads, so you have to take the lead for the spark igniter off of there, okay? And these ones are still on here, or they were still on there. So if you have some that get stuck like this, you're gonna have to make sure when you lift it free to take those loose, because otherwise you're gonna grab it and it's gonna still be attached, and that's not gonna be a good thing. So anyway, I'm gonna get rid of these guys, okay? So let me just put these over here. And I'll get rid of this. Okay, so now I can pull the cooktop free of there. Remember, these two got stuck onto the pipes, but they did unscrew further downstream, so, or further upstream, I should say. So this guy will just come off like this, and bam! Now you got the underpinnings of the cooktop exposed, and this is what you're going to be working with to do the conversion. Okay, so if you look at it, you got the pipe here. This is where the burner head goes. And then right inside here, you have the orifices. Okay, you can always tell because they go into the brass. They go into brass pieces. Okay, and the orifices are brass themselves. Okay, so this is the spark module that when you turn it on, when you turn the knobs on, it sends a spark through each one of these. And some stoves, if they're really super high end, these individually will spark. But if they're, and this is actually a pretty high end stove too. I guess I probably didn't say that properly, but some of them will have all the spark modules going, and some of them will only have the one going that you're attached to, that you're trying to turn on. For whatever reason, I don't know why they've taken a different convention like that with these cooktops, okay? So, now, the burner heads are free, okay? This is the part that goes on top of the actual base plate. Obviously, okay, that's the diffuser, okay? We're going to be working with this later on, okay? Now, one of the things that I mentioned a couple of different things that need to be adjusted on these, okay, if you're going to do a conversion. And I referenced the unit. I'm just trying to get this thing to where it grabs good. Okay. I referenced the unit, so I'm going to move it back just a little bit. Okay, so there's a trim pot on each of these tubes. Okay, once the orifices are swapped out, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to trim these with a fine bladed screwdriver. Okay, and I'm going to see if I can get a shot of that. Now, normally the trim pot is down in the stem of the unit. Most units are set up like that. On these ones here, the trim pot is right there. Okay, that's how you're going to adjust the low flame setting so that the low flame is as low as it can be on each burner head. And these will have to be done individually, okay, because the flow of the gas will be different with propane versus gas and vice versa. Okay, so now I'm going to get back to the other parts of the works here. Now, I mentioned that you're going to have to do these. You're going to have to change the distance, this window here, as you can see, okay, and I probably should get a little bit closer to that, so let me see if I can get in a little bit closer. The window okay, that window right there. Let me get this one here. This one's a better example because you can see it better. Okay, where is it? Here it is. Okay. All right, that window right there. The distance in this window, however big this window is, also, well, if you're at sea level, you might not have to change this, but then again, you might. Okay, so however much air is being sucked into here when this is the orifice. Okay, when this orifice blows gas into here, it comes up through the tube. Okay, and ignites at the burner head. Okay, so the orifice is going to get changed. You're going to take this off of here to get to the orifice, but before you take this off of here, you're going to want to mark this. Okay, so normally, I'll count threads, and then I'll count the number of threads that it takes to come out there, and then I'll mark it. Like I'm going to just mark the top here and the top of the brass piece right there, so that I know when I put that thing back together where that is. In other words, it's clocked. Okay. So this will come off, the orifice will come out, you'll put the new orifice back in, and then you'll put this back to the same position. And that'll give you a good starting point to start to trim these once you've done that. Okay, I'm not going to show how to trim them or anything. Basically, I'm here to show, how to swap the orifices in. Okay, so that's basically it. Okay, you have your cooktop, you have, oops, you have all of your adjustments. Okay, which is 4 of them. Okay, so let me go through that, back through that again. Number 1, you're going to swap the orifice out. Number 2, you're going to change the setting for this here, how far back or far out of, how big this window is right here. Number 3, the trim. Okay. And I'm trying to remember what the 4th one was. The 4th one was, okay, 1, 2, okay, so basically, again, just to review, 4 adjustments. 1 is the regulator, which has to be changed over from gas to propane if it's a dual gas regulator. If it's not, you're going to have to change the regulator. Okay. Number 2, the orifice itself, which is right here on these units. Okay. Number 3, the size of the window. Possibly you might have to change that. Like I said, if you're going from sea level to sea level, this size of this window might actually be the same. There's guides on how to get that flame right also. I'm not here to do that because, the guide will show very exclusively how that's supposed to be. The flame is supposed to be a very steady flame that doesn't flare up, very, very steady and very low. So that's how you're going to know you got that low flame setting right, okay? And then the 4th setting is this little trim pot here at the knobs, which are back over here. The little trim pot, and that's going to adjust how big the flame comes out for the low flame setting. And basically, once you have that down, you're going to put the top back on this thing. You're going to put basically to do that part of it, you're going to put these guys back together, okay, which is how you doing? Which is this guy here, and then that just goes up on top there. And then you're going to play with this and try to get it right. How you doing? So again, you'll have these things put together. This guy goes on here, okay? You're going to put this on the head here. You're going to put this in here. And then, you're going to have it hooked up to the gas source, and then you're going to have to start to work with the trim knobs, which are back over here on these knobs here. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, the trim knobs just to adjust the low flame setting. Once they're all set, you can slap it all back together and put it all back the way you want it. Now these tubes actually come out of here. On the Viking units, there's a screw that goes underneath each of these burner heads, so they'll come out. And then that way you can get out of the way, and then you can unscrew these guys off of here. And remember to clock these, because you want to make sure that you have that gap right. Otherwise, this thing's going to give you some serious problems. You're not going to be able to get it ignited. It's going to keep blowing out, or maybe it's going to be, there's a number of different things that can happen if you get that wrong. Very important to have that clocked before you actually take this part off of here. This is a separate tube, and as I said, there's a screw that goes underneath here, okay, and it will and I hope I can see what I was talking about there. Okay, yeah, there's a tube that actually goes, or there's a screw that goes underneath this tube to bolt it to the chassis, so that can be removed by getting underneath there in getting the tube. And oh, by the way, there's like a secondary plate under there, so this plate here will have to be removed, and then you can get to those screws. And as I said, you'll unscrew these guys, take them out, and then you'll unscrew those, but they'll be clocked because you'll have marked these so that this window is correct. And that's the end of the video. Hope that was a help.